In 2018, an incredible 46 states have legalized at least some forms of medical cannabis, and so far, 9 have legalized recreational use as well. Remarkably, some conservatives, led by former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, assert that federal law should trump the will of the states on this issue. What happened to federalism? Free the People sat down with U.S. Senator Cory Gardner, whose state of Colorado was among the first to legalize the sale and use of cannabis. Senator Gardner isn't the world's biggest fan of weed, but he is a fan of the Constitution and its 10th Amendment.
Senator Gardner, thanks for sitting down with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You are the lead sponsor of legislation that essentially gets the federal government out of the question of cannabis and restores that right to the states. Tell me what your legislation does.
Yeah, so our legislation is really simple. In fact, there's a lot of bills that have been introduced in Congress, the multiple pages, complicated efforts on the financial services side, banking side. This is a real simple approach. It simply takes a federalism avenue to states, allowing them to be the laboratories of democracy that our founders intended states to be, and says, hey, if a state has decided to legalize marijuana, hemp, any of the sort of spectrum of marijuana or hemp issues, then it's no longer an illegal activity. That's something perfectly legal. And it's just a two-page bill that simply says a state can do it, and if a state does it, then that federal prohibition no longer applies.
Now you've partnered with Democrats. What's the balance here? Do you get Republican support as well?
Yeah, we do. Not enough. We're still working on it right now. This is a states' rights approach. We have 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans on the legislation right now, the States Act. So 10 members of the U.S. Senate on board. We're hopefully getting others. It's certainly gotten a lot of attention and a lot of interest because it identifies a couple of core beliefs for certainly Republicans, conservatives who believe in states' rights. Who want to see more power taken out of Washington and decentralized, so to speak, diffused out into the states. And so that's kind of what appeals to them, but then just the uncertainty that they have in their minds about marijuana itself and how that's going to affect themselves, their constituency, and where their voters are at.
It's fascinating to watch some conservatives who have been talking about the 10th Amendment and how we really should stay out of the state's businesses sort of flip and flop on this. And Democrats are the same thing, that on this question, a lot of them have suddenly embraced the 10th Amendment, but I view this as a conservative issue.
Well, if we're going to stand up and fight that states' rights conflict or that penalty against states' rights by shutting down school choice, then shouldn't we be consistent and support a moment like this where it's something that we disagree with or some may disagree with on legalization of marijuana? So to me, it's a matter of being consistent and saying, if we're for states' rights here, we're for states' rights there.
So there's a lot of medical evidence that cannabis is an important treatment for things ranging from epilepsy to all sorts of other really challenging health issues. Do you think that there are health benefits to cannabis for some patients?
There absolutely are, and I think you've seen that in the people that have come into my office who first started me. Sort of what the first bill that I introduced in this area was a CBD bill. Based on a strain of cannabis that they developed a CBD oil out of called Charlotte's Web. Paige Feige is one of the premier voices in this back in Colorado, where one of her children, one of her kids, was suffering from epilepsy, I think around 1,200 seizures, internal seizures a month. And through the use of CBDs, it dropped to about a dozen a month. And so it doesn't work for all kids, and that's an area where we need to study. Why does it work for some, not for others? But clearly it had a benefit, and a life-changing benefit. We have medical refugees now, where you have families moving to Colorado, their mom or their dad with their child, and their other mom or dad is off somewhere else because they can get treatment in Colorado that's changing their kid's life for the better. And we need to fix this. We need to have this solution.
You know, I'm old enough to remember when Republicans argued against too much government control of healthcare because we believe that those decisions should be between patients and doctors. Right.
It's an interesting debate. You know, I mean, that's kind of when I go to a member, particularly who I know may be a little bit hesitant to support a states' rights approach, legalization approach, and I remind them about that. Hey, this is about getting out of the way. This is about turning something over away from the federal government to those who could better handle it for their population, for their people, their constituencies, and that's a big internal tension that has to be addressed here.
So you mentioned the Colorado economy and what an important sector legal cannabis is there. It's I think you said a $2 billion business. That's amazing. How is it going in Colorado? Because some people have argued that legalization has been a bumpy ride. And more importantly, how has the Attorney General's very aggressive stance impacted Colorado's transition to legalization?
Yeah, I think to the first part of it, I mean, there have been some bad things that have happened. There's no doubt about that. I mean, you talk to sheriffs and they have a big concern about the number of homeless, what they would call perhaps vagrants that are in and out of an area. You talk to people who manage our public lands and they talk about the forests are being used for illegal grow operations. That's been a challenge. But you talked about some of the benefits earlier, and that's on the health side. Kids who are leading better lives because of it, and jobs that are being created in an industry that is, if you go to Denver right now, we have Colorado overall, record unemployment levels, a lot of jobs being created. So there's benefits too. So this is something that we need to study more. It's something we need to have more information. Public surveys in Colorado, the federal surveys show that teen use of marijuana has actually declined in Colorado over the past several years. So, why is that happening? Is it happening because it's no longer something daring to do, or is it happening because people are doing a better job of saying, hey, be careful of what you're doing and don't do this? So I think there's a lot of questions that need answered, but it's good and bad, but it's not going away, and that's what we have to deal with.
So you're going to go out in the hallway and you're going to run into your most conservative colleague and get on the elevator with him or her. What's the elevator pitch?
Elevator pitch is this: if we believe that government should get out of the way and let the state decide what to do, here's an opportunity to do just that. That if we believe in the 10th Amendment, if we believe in giving states more rights, not fewer, this is a perfect solution. And it's addressing a number of problems: banking, the safety issues. It's addressing that legalization conflict, and it says, so it's a long elevator ride. So the other thing too that I think is important. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a tall building. In these conversations, I always bring up too that if your state doesn't want to do this, then you don't have to. And I think that's part of the distinction that is lost in this debate sometimes. There are approaches to quote unquote legalize. This is not about legalization. This is about federalism. So if you live I used to use the example of Oklahoma, but now Oklahoma has even moved forward on medical marijuana. But if Oklahoma decides they don't want to pursue recreational marijuana, they don't have to. And nothing changes at the federal level. They're still under that same system. So this really is about empowering a decision to be made locally.
Thank you.